Okay, we're live.
All right. So good evening, everyone. I am Barbara Fouché, Mayor Pro Tem for the town of Carrboro, serving in the absence of Mayor Lydia Lavelle. Welcome to the October 12th, 2001 edition of the Carrboro Town Council meeting. And so we will start with our roll call.
Okay. Mayor Lydia Lavelle, not here. Mayor Pro Tem Barbara Fouché.
Present.
Councilmember Jacqueline Gist.
Present.
Councilmember Randy Haven O'Donnell.
Present. And do we need to excuse Lydia formally?
Yeah, after the roll call, you guys could do that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Susan Romaine.
Present.
Councilmember Sammy Slade.
Present.
And Councilmember Damon Siles.
Present.
So we need to excuse Mayor Lavelle. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I cut somebody off.
Yeah, so we just need a motion and a second to.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
All right. So moved by Randy, second by Susan. So go around and I'll start with Sammy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Jackie.
Aye.
Damon.
Aye.
Susan.
Aye.
Randy.
Aye.
And me, aye. Excusing Mayor Lavelle. So do we have Fred in the waiting room for the poetry reading? Thank you.
Yes, he's coming over now.
Great. Hello, Fred.
Hello. Good evening. Good to see you all. Good to be with you. I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to read from a collection of prose. It's a book I just got called The Illuminated Space. It's a personal theory and contemplative practice of media art. It's by a media artist. She makes videos and all that, but she has some really, really cool ideas about creativity and about being present that I thought I would share. And this one is, I just got this book, so I'm not familiar with all the work yet, so forgive me if I stumble. It's a piece called Walking. Walking. If you are a person who is able to walk in whatever way you can. Don't wait to walk. Don't wait until you feel like you have enough time. Don't wait until all else fails in your life. Don't wait until you're older. Don't wait. Do not walk because you think you are old. Walk every day. It's not the walking. It's not that walking makes life simple, but walking makes life simpler. Walking is the mystical idea of is what the mystical idea of prayer promises to be. When you walk, look around, see what you see. It will be more than is possible to see. So you will need to walk again and again every day. When you walk, listen. Listen. Notice what is on your heart. Your heart will be so happy you are noticing, and so sad you are noticing. That mix of happiness and sadness will begin to blend and begin a long, slow stirring of something that will first be a whisper. You don't hear it all. Then a whisper drifting in the sound of traffic or rain or your own footsteps. Keep walking and walking. And that whisper will break through to you occasionally, like in the sound of a dog barking, or the cries of a seagull, or an unexpected frog, or crickets, or leaves. You'll feel the lift, but not necessarily know who or what is whispering to you. And one day, and this could happen on your very first walk, or your last walk, or any walk, or all the walks, one day you will hear the call through your body. It will feel like an invitation, clearly whispering to you, and that will be love. So The Illuminated Space. It's by this writer who I was not familiar with, Marilyn Freeman. It just struck me as something to think about in our everyday, going about our day, our everyday practice of life. Take a walk. So thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Always amazing. And I didn't know if you wanted to plug the West End Poetry
Yes.
Festival.
So
do that.
Yeah, absolutely. West End Poetry Festival. Listen, first of all, I want to say just thank you to you all and to all the staff and town council and everybody who makes the West End Poetry Festival a thing. Don't take it lightly. I've been to many cities that do not invest in poetry in this way. And so the fact that you all in our town and the citizens of our town invest in a poetry festival is an incredible thing. And so we do it. It's usually like the third week. Anyway, it usually ends up being around the 15th to the 17th of every October. It's a free festival. That's the other thing. You all and the work you all do make this festival free, where we have world-class poets. We've had MacArthur geniuses. We've had Pulitzer Prize winners. We've had all the things read at this festival, and it's a testament to the work and the citizenry of Carrboro. So please come out and support the West End Poetry Festival. I think it starts on the 15th this year, 15th through the 17th. We've got a gaggle of poet laureates reading from former poet laureates, current poet laureates. C.J. Suit, poet laureate of Chapel Hill, will be there. And it's just going to be a good time. So please come out and support us. And we'll see you there. Go to westendpoetryfestival.org. All the information is there. We're going to do a mix of virtual and in person, and all COVID. Wear your mask, please. When you come, wear your mask, socially distance where you can and where appropriate, but come out and support us. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Sure.
I appreciate that. See you next week.
Bye.
So I have one proclamation in recognition of Community Planning Month, and I am guessing maybe Trish McGuire will come over to receive.
Yeah, if you're a staff person and want to come over, if you could raise your hand. I see a lot of town in Carrboro, but I don't know. I can bring Marty over.
Okay.
I don't know if Trisha's here.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start reading it. Community Planning Month. Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, boroughs, townships, rural areas, and other places. And whereas community planning and plans can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live. And whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas Community Planning Month provides an opportunity to pause and reflect on the true purpose of planning, the value of community, made even more apparent this year during the extended period of a pandemic and the 20th anniversary of the events of 9/11. And whereas work on the town's first comprehensive plan has required innovative ways of seeking out those who may not typically get involved in town activities and events. And whereas the town has embraced the full spectrum of outreach strategies, from increasing the town's social media platforms to returning to more traditional formats, such as printed materials and the community bulletin boards. And whereas the full benefit of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. And whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories. And whereas the American Planning Association endorses National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight how planning is essential to recovery and how planners can lead communities to equitable, resilient, and long-lasting recovery. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of our numerous advisory boards and commissions, task forces, and coalitions, and other citizen planners who regularly contribute their time and talents to the improvement of the town of Carrboro. And whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by professional, community, and regional planners of the town, Orange County, our neighboring communities, region, and state, and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Barbara Foushee, in the absence of Mayor Lydia E. Lavelle, Mayor of the town of Carrboro, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 as Community Planning Month in the town of Carrboro, in conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month, this, the 12th day of October 2021. This proclamation has been signed by Mayor Lydia E. Lavelle. And there's Trish.
Thank you so
You got next.
much. That was a wonderful reading, and I really appreciate your emphasis. Though planning is the name of the department where I work, it really is a function all around the town of all of our activities and departments. And then, part as Mayor Pro Tem Foushee so wonderfully stated, there is the implementation side of it as well. And it is the partner of planning to have implementation. And on your agenda tonight, you have some of those types of actions that we need to implement any of our plans. Discussions of advisory board members for climate action, the affordable housing report, all of the updates on what's happening with transportation. All of these things take a tremendous amount of time and effort, and they take so much deep consideration that you all provide to the community. I think one of your real standouts, of course, is your deep commitment and to involving community and building community. So the comprehensive plan input towards the public hearing draft is our big community planning event this year. There's not a specific, some years there's a specific name for this celebration, but this year there is not. It is, I think, up to each community to decide, and the comp plan is our centerpiece this year. We hope that any of the social media that you see posting about planning in general and about the plan input opportunities, that you'll repost those messages. And thank you so much for your support and commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. We appreciate you and your planning department staff. You guys do amazing work, and we appreciate you so much. I don't know if other council members wanted to say anything. I see Jackie's hand.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We have an amazing staff that pulls together our community to do really important work and to do it well. But at the center of that staff is our very humble planning director. Trish, you do such an amazing job. And I know your staff all looks up to you, as does the rest of the community. And we really wouldn't be able to do the things. I know you're not one to take credit, but you deserve a lot of credit. So I just want to thank you for all the years you've put in, and all the years hopefully you'll continue to work with Carrboro. So thank you, Trish, for all you do for all of us.
Very kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Anybody else? Oh, I see Randy's hand.
Yeah, I just want to say ditto, ditto, ditto. Trish couldn't be more humble. In fact, one of the most spectacular qualities that you have, Trish, is that you will uplift your team ahead of yourself always. You're always giving recognition to your team, and it is a team effort, and you do so much work to make that happen. And even just putting forth planning month and making it a real thing. So, thank you. And thank you, Jackie, for those comments, because they couldn't be truer.
Thank you, Randy. I see Susan. Susan's hand.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And yes, I too just want to add a few words. Trish, how fortunate I have been to be on town council during this whole comprehensive planning process. And it's during this that I appreciate you and your department, more than ever in terms of taking this on. And I know that on top of all of the other things that you do, to also be able to take on this Herculean effort with the comprehensive plan. I don't know how you find enough hours in the day, but just know that we all really appreciate what you're doing, both for today and over the next 10 and 20 years, helping us to build an even better community. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I don't see anybody else's hand. So again, thank you, Trish and planning staff. We just have a wonderful staff in general. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trish.
Bye.
We have now announcement of upcoming meetings.
Okay. On October 13th at 6 o'clock is the Arts Committee meeting. And also on October 13th at 7:30 is the Economic Sustainability Commission meeting. And on October 14th, the Stormwater Advisory Commission meeting at 6:30. And then on October 18th, the Greenways Commission meeting at 6:30. And then next week on October 19th, we have our next town council meeting. And all of these meetings are virtual on Zoom.
Thank you so much, Mary. I see Susan's hand and then Jamin.
I just wanted to add one more meeting. Wednesday, October 13th from 5:30 to 7 is the Intergovernmental Parks Work Group meeting.
Thank you, Susan. Dana.
Thanks, Barbara. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in Durham, well, not in Durham, it's online. Normally in Durham, the Durham Chapel Hill Carrboro Metropolitan Planning Organization Board will meet. This is our monthly meeting, and it is at this meeting that we will be taking up our next round of discussion of the 2050 Metropolitan Planning, Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which we all discussed a few weeks ago. And as you know, are hoping to make some big changes to this time around. So I'll hope to have some good news for you after tomorrow.
Thank you, Damon. Did I see Sammy? Did I see your hand? Oh,
Just
yes.
a thumbs up for Damon. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Sammy. And so I did want to mention again the West End Poetry Festival, as well as the Chapel Hill Carrboro NAACP Freedom Fund Banquet, which is also Sunday. And we will move right along to public comment. And I believe we have Shelley Welch and Kevin. Is that right? Do we have slides, Mary?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I have those.
Mm-hmm. And if someone could do the soft 3 minutes for me, the time. Anybody?
I can do that.
Thank you, Damon. Oh, there's Shelley.
Okay.
Hey.
So, hi, thank you, Mary. So we are back here again to discuss this issue of excavation and equipment storage on the Merrick gravel pit jurisdiction of town of Carrboro. And while planning is important and critical to city and county governments around the nation and to Carrboro especially, it is also critical that enforcement, along with planning is followed through with. Otherwise, planning is useless. And for those folks who are watching tonight and those who may be watching the video at a future date, this is a reference to, as I said, storage and excavation on Town of Carrboro's jurisdiction area. This first slide shows a table within the land use ordinance of 10.300, which shows in a water restricted area, watershed residential, storage of equipment and vehicles is not permissible. If we go to slide 2, this shows just a couple months ago, the area in the red dotted area, which is under the Town of Carrboro's jurisdiction, areas in which the town has already told the Merritts that they are not allowed to excavate. And the top section of that slide, you'll see all the greenery and the trees that have grown over the last several years. If you move to the next slide, a month and a half later, the Merritts have excavated this area against a notice of violation to not do so, as well as preparing to store equipment and vehicles in this location. So if you move to the next slide, you'll see that the Merritts were required by NCDEQ to remove rock crushing equipment because it's not permissible in his permit. And so therefore he moved these vehicles and these machinery onto Town of Carrboro because I believe that he felt like Town of Carrboro is not going to do anything about it. So if we move to the next slide, you'll see these large pieces of equipment still sit to this day. I'm sure in a watershed, we do not want any type of vehicle that may be leaking oils or gas or any type of other fluids into protected watershed area. And if you move to the next slide, that's the last one. Thank you, Mary. The critical part of this is that we feel like right now, through the experiences of the last settlement that you had with the Merritts, was dismissed in about a month and a half ago with prejudice, meaning the destruction of the stream buffer, which they caused, can no longer be brought back and protected.
Just 3 minutes, Barbara.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So this is why this is so important to not allow backdoor deals by Bob Hornick and Judge Nick Herman.
Thank you, Kevin. Shirley, did you want to speak as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to respond to a question last week by one of the town council members about what the next steps are for Carrboro in handling the latest excavation by the Merritts in the watershed area. There is a whole article in the LUO called Enforcement and Review. It's section 15.111. And basically it takes you step by step into what the enforcement procedure is. The administrator, and I guess that could be Trish or Marty, shall send a written notice to the person responsible for the violation. And that one written notice, according to the LUO, is allowed to serve also as the final notice. There is nothing in the LUO that indicates there is any kind of 30-day, 10-day, 15-day waiting period once the letter is sent. And it does say in 15.113C, in cases when delay would seriously threaten the effective enforcement of this ordinance, the administrator may seek enforcement without prior written notice by invoking any of the penalties or remedies authorized in section 15.114. So that is it. There is one other area that says this chapter may also be enforced by any appropriate equitable action. If you're unfamiliar with legal terms, that basically means the town of Carrboro can file a complaint for specific performance requiring the Merritts to comply with the LUO. They can file an injunction requiring the Merritts to stop violating the LUO, or they can file for restitution, which wouldn't make much sense in this case. And the last piece is that each day's continuing violation can be a separate and distinct offense. So the process for what to do once the discovery, once the violations are discovered, is right there. And there are fines, $5,000 that can be put upon somebody who is not complying. And I think what Kevin was trying to say about our sense of urgency is when we come to you with a complaint that the merits are violating the ordinance, there is so much delay. And during that time, the merits complete their violation. And what happened with the destruction of the stream buffer was that they not only completed it, but in the settlement agreement that we believe Nick and Ian agreed to without much input from anyone else, they really had to do very little besides seed the area. There was no removal of any of the dirt. And they didn't even do the seeding that we can tell. And on August 30th, I believe, Nick dismissed it with prejudice. With prejudice means the town of Carrboro can never bring back that lawsuit. It is over and done with. That stream buffer will remain destroyed for all time. And our concern is this very excavation is eliciting another behind the scenes discussion. And Kevin, you know, we call Nick Herman Judge Herman because it does seem like he's the person who's actually in control of the decisions that Carrboro makes, whereas he should be the person contributing to the town council and the staff. But you all are supposed to be making the final decisions, and it doesn't appear that that's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. I don't know if Town Manager White or Attorney Al Binshoff would like to respond to Shelley and Kevin.
Not hearing a rush to the microphone, all I can say is that I cannot answer this without reviewing the case file. And the way that the Bro Law Firm works is that the attorneys that work for you are the attorneys that work for you. I don't review your cases unless I have a specific request from the town or from Nick or Bob to look at something. So that's a long way of saying, I don't know anything about this case. I don't know what the procedural posture is. Someone can certainly find out and get back to the council if that's indicated.
Yes, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I can help. We do have a meeting planned on Thursday to look at these matters, and I also met with our speakers tonight and told them that I'll be back in touch with them within the week. So we're certainly going to get back to them within the week on these two matters.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you, Mr. Binshoff. Thank you, Shelley and Kevin. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, Sammy, you had a comment?
And thank you, Mr. Attorney and Mr. Manager, for letting them know what the status is. As a council, I think we would also be interested in learning what the outcome is after your meeting on Thursday, and also the meeting that you had with the attorney for the mine that happened last week. And as the attorney said, what the procedural posture. It was very helpful for Shelley to share with us what our enforcement mechanisms are. So I'd like to hear what exactly we are doing in that regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sammy. No other comments? All right, so we'll move to the consent agenda. Mr. Town Manager White.
Good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. There are two items on the consent agenda. The first item is the approval of the September 21st, 2021 meeting minutes. And the second item is quarterly report for the town of Carrboro CDBG-CV grant. The purpose of this item is to provide an update on the town of Carboro's Community Development Block Grant, Coronavirus Grant from the North Carolina Department of Commerce.
Thank you. And I see Sammy's hand.
Yes, apologies. I haven't had a chance to read the meeting minutes. Somehow, maybe Kathy, if you could resend, I'm having issues downloading it to my computer. I don't know why that's happening.
Are you asking to hold those minutes, Sammy?
Yes, please.
Okay. And Damon?
I just want to echo Sammy's request. I had the same difficulty, and I did talk to Kathy about it, and she was looking into it. So I have also not been able to actually open that file.
Okay. So, Jackie?
Very quickly, I just wanted to thank staff for all the work they've done, particularly in reading the quarterly report for the CDBG grant. It was that's very impressive, and it certainly reflects the work of all of our staff coming together to make sure that our community was and is taken care of. So if people get a chance to read that, it's online, and it's pretty impressive.
Thank you, Jackie. So could I get a motion? We're holding the September 21st meeting minutes until next week. So could I get a motion to move the quarterly report?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Jackie, second by Randy. All in favor say aye. I will start with Damon. Damon?
Aye.
Thank you. Sammy?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Randy?
Aye.
Barbara? Aye. That is the consent agenda, and we're moving on to other matters.
Okay, the first item under other matters is appointments to the Affordable Housing Advisory Commission.
And so we'll hear from our deputy town clerk.
Okay. So the following three applicants received the majority votes: Bobby Funk, Lindsay Griffin, and Brandon Tubby.
All right. So, I'm sorry, Damon, go ahead.
I'd like to move that we appoint Bobby Funk, Lindsay Griffin, and Brandon Tubby to the Affordable Housing Advisory Commission.
Perfect.
Second.
Moved by Damon, second by Randy. All in favor say aye. Jackie?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Randy?
Aye.
And Barbara? Aye. So thank you. The motion carries. So we have those three new members to the Affordable Housing Advisory.
Okay, the next item is the appointments to the Climate Action Team.
And we'll go back to our deputy town clerk. Hopefully we have 9.
We do not. We have 7. So we'll go ahead and proceed with the 7. And then that means 2 seats remain, and the council can proceed as you wish. So I'll go ahead and read the 7. So it's Kaufman, Mays, Pick, Pinder, Robertson, Zoo, and Shalkoff are the top 7.
I see Sammy's hand. Sammy?
I'll move to appoint those 7.
Mm-hmm. Susan was second.
I'll second.
So Sammy motion, Susan second. All in favor say aye. Sammy?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Randy?
Aye.
And Barbara? Aye. Mary, could you read those names again? I'm sorry.
No problem. Kaufman, Mays, Pick, Pinder, Robertson, Zoo, and Shalkoff. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of them.
And so the other 2 that we need to make the 9, is that going to come back around?
Yeah. Kathy sent out the email this evening to get so I guess if you guys just do that vote on the remaining 2.
Yeah, well, I guess we weren't able to get it complete. So that's fine. Thank you. So we have 7 folks on the climate action team. So we're on our way. Let's see Sammy's hand before we move on.
Yes, just wanted to check in with y'all to see if perhaps while we're meeting, if y'all have an opportunity to respond to Kathy's email, we may be able to appoint the remaining ones tonight as an idea as how to proceed.
Thank you, Sammy. I see Susan's hand.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And just to follow up on what you said just a moment ago about we're on our way. We are, and I think it's really great that we were able to make these appointments this evening. But I just wanted to mention that we still have some vacant seats on the Stormwater Advisory Commission, OWASA Board of Directors, and the Community Safety Task Force, seats that went unfilled at our last meeting. And I was hoping that we could actually set a time frame for when we think that we could create a diverse applicant pool and then make appointments to all three of these boards. And I was going to make a recommendation that we do that before or on our very last meeting before the winter recess, which is Tuesday, December 7th. So I feel the same urgency in making appointments, and I wanted to just throw that out there and see what you all thought in terms of whether, if we work together on this, if that seemed like that's something that would be doable.
Comments?
Sounds good.
I see Damon. Jackie said it sounds good. I see Damon's hand.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for us getting applicants in as quickly as we can. I think the organizational meeting is typically reserved for non-business matters. So we would need to be before that meeting, which really gives us only a couple more meetings. So just throwing that out there. But in any case, yes, we should appoint these as soon as we have applicants.
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have a question on that. We don't have many meetings left, and I didn't know if we had that December 7th meeting, that would give us about little less than 2 months to do this. If we had that December 7th meeting, can any kind of business be conducted, given that this would be very quick, making the appointments? Is that something that could still be part of that meeting, or there's no business to be?
Yeah, I think that meeting is swearing in business. Pretty much everything is centered around that, whoever who rises to the top during the election. And I think everything is pretty much centered around that. Of just following up with what Damon said. From what I remember, we don't conduct per se council business, because the council, we don't know what the result is going to be. And so, yeah, so I would do it prior. I would say even before Thanksgiving. That's my recommendation. What do others think?
We have some very good very, very qualified candidates who were not appointed to the two boards that we just made appointments to. And so Kathy and Mary will already have some good candidates there. And I think if we focused on it, we could make it happen. And it would be really nice to start in January with 3 more boards that are ready to hit the ground running. So why don't we just say we'll try?
Yeah, and we will. I see Sammy saying, thank you, Susan. I see Sammy and then Jackie.
Yeah, one more thing to consider is that the EAB also will have an opportunity for appointments and vacancies. And I think one of the applicants had an interest for both the EAB and the Climate Action Committee. So there will be one person who will be leaving the EAB, who is currently the chair, who will be serving on the Climate Action team. So there's going to be a need there too to fill.
Jackie, thank you, Sammy. Jackie, did you have?
I just had a question, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. So we're only appointing, we're only appointing 7 tonight instead of 9. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we'll come up with the other 2 later on, or what's the plan?
Well, I think the emails have been going, trying to, kind of get a majority for the other 2. I think that's where we are now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the clarification.
Kathy said that it is an option if you guys would like to discuss the other 2 tonight. You can do that, or you can wait, to do it over the next week. So it's up to you guys. But if there's anything you wanted to discuss about the appointing the other two, you could do that tonight.
Mary, did Kathy receive from the latest request that she sent out from all council members or not?
You said yes, got everyone.
And it's still not resolved.
So
Got it.
nothing's,
There's no
nothing's come out of
majority.
it.
Yeah.
It's no
Yeah.
clear.
And also, I may have missed it, but I don't know if you guys actually voted. I know there was a motion and a second, but I don't know if you actually took the vote
For the 7?
for the 7.
I think we did.
Did we?
Yeah, we
Okay.
did. We did, Mary. Jackie?
I was just going to quickly respond that I'm comfortable to keep going the way we've been going. We'll get there.
Okay. Everybody comfortable with that? I am. I think we're okay. So we have 7. We're on our way. That's more than we had last week. So I think we're doing great with climate action team. So we're ready to move to the next item, Mr. White.
The next item is the fiscal year 2021 Affordable Housing and Community Services Report. And the purpose of this item is to request that the town council receive a report on our affordable housing and community services activity in FY 2021. And Rebecca Buzzard, our Housing Community Services Director, will present this item.
Rebecca, if you could raise your hand. I see.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Let me start sharing my screen if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you see the fiscal year 2021 year in review slide?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Fishy and Town Council members. I am Rebecca Buzzard, the Housing and Community Services Director, and tonight I will present our fiscal year 2021 Housing and Community Services Review. The Housing and Community Services Department was created in early 2020 to increase dedicated resources to 2 of the town's strategic priority areas, to encourage development that's compact, dense, and appeals to diverse lifestyles and incomes, and to enhance and sustain the quality of life and place for everyone. Specifically, the department works to implement the town's affordable housing goals, to strengthen the network of community nonprofits, to connect Carrboro's most vulnerable residents to vital services, and to provide response to resident concerns about housing and other basic human needs. The department currently is staffed with 3 employees and serves 2 advisory commissions, the Affordable Housing and Human Services Commission. Tonight, we'll talk about our response to the COVID-19 pandemic, our progress meeting affordable housing goals, the human services process, and touch on the upcoming work of our department. So first, we'll talk about the pandemic response. At the beginning of the pandemic, the Orange County Emergency Operations Center realized there was a gap in food distributions in the southern part of the county. We partnered with the Department of Social Services to hold 8 distributions in fiscal year 2021. This chart shows the number of households served per month. We hosted the events at 2 sites, at Carrboro High School and Hank Anderson Park. And we served about 1,750 households with food. The events really couldn't have taken place without community volunteers and help from town departments such as Public Works, Police, Fire, and Communications, who really helped get the word out. These are a few pictures from the events. They were COVID safe, with cars opening their trunks and driving through and us putting food in the back. We gave out fresh produce, meat, dairy, pet food, and a lot more. So now we'll transition from food to housing, still talking about pandemic response. Orange County and the towns worked together to create the Emergency Housing Assistance Program. It's a streamlined process for income eligible households to obtain rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. The program helps residents secure and maintain stable housing and prevents evictions and homelessness. Specifically in Carrboro, our town council approved almost $300,000 for emergency housing assistance in 2021. In combination with county funding of 1.1 million and HOPE funding of almost 600,000, we were able to provide almost $2 million in assistance to Carrboro individuals and families. And this came out to about 572 households. In this chart, EHA households are noted in light green and HOPE in the darker green. One note about this HOPE spike: the state released 500 applications in October of 2020 for the county to administer. And the chart shows this quick uptake in awarding the applications in October and December. And then the program was supposed to end on December 31st. But because the state extended it through February, the county was able to process those remaining applications. So that's the explanation of that kind of weird HOPE spike there. And overall, we gave out an average of about $3,500 per household. In terms of who we served with EHA, 75% of Carrboro residents served had a household income at or below 30% area median income, which for reference is about $18,000 for a household of one. And that's noted here in dark blue. 19% served had a household income at or below 50%, and 6% had a household income at or below 60. I'm sorry, that was 50 and this is 60. HOPE assistance goes up to 80% AMI, so all EHA ineligible residents were referred to the HOPE program. In terms of race, 32% of Carrboro residents receiving assistance identified as Black, 24% identified as Latinx, 22% were unidentified, 13% identified as white, 5% identified as Asian, and 4% identified as multiracial, Middle Eastern, or other. And again, in this chart, you can see the light green representing EHA and the dark green representing HOPE. A map that shows the approximate location of housing assistance is included in your agenda packet. This one has a couple of corrections that we will make in Granicus. The red dots represent emergency housing assistance locations, and where they're larger represents a greater number of households receiving EHA. We can see a large portion along our 54 corridor, along Jones Ferry, and up in Estes, where our larger apartment complexes are located. And I'll discuss the new and preserved housing as we transition into affordable housing, which we will do now. So because of time constraints, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about our current affordable housing crisis, which we know we're in, but these two charts from the Chamber's State of the Community report, which the towns are a part of supporting, shows that home prices have sharply increased. We can see a $100,000 increase from 2019 to 2021. And in the second chart, we can see that 55% of Carrboro renters are cost burdened, which means that they pay more than 30% of their household income on rent. The Affordable Housing Issues and Opportunities report from Carrboro Connects provides additional data on our current housing situation, and the comprehensive plan is aiming to address these issues. And I put the website here. There's still time for public comment on that. So in Carrboro, our primary tool to reach affordable housing goals is the Affordable Housing Special Revenue Fund. The town council dedicated $1.50 of property tax to affordable housing. This equates to about $338,000 per year. And guiding the use of this tool is the Affordable Housing Goals and Strategies document that was adopted in 2014. This chart provides an overview of how we spent the fund. We spent almost all of it in fiscal year 2021, and any unspent money remains in this multi-year account, and we allocate it to reserves for future housing projects. And I'm going to talk about each of these categories now. So recurring expenses cover 3 organizations or collective groups that have countywide impact and are governed by interlocal agreements. First, Community Home Trust was created by the local governments to strengthen the community with permanently affordable housing opportunities. They currently have 46 homes in Carrboro, and they also own the Landings, which is a low-income housing tax credit property with 58 apartments. The second there is the HUD Home Investment Partnership Program. We call it our Home Collaborative. It provides grants to states and localities to fund building, buying, and rehabilitating affordable housing for both rent and ownership. And finally, the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness. They support a coalition of service providers, local governments, and community members to coordinate the work of ending homelessness in Orange County. Okay, so now we're going to move into the progress towards housing goals. So from the adopted Affordable Housing Goals and Strategies document, the town's first goal is to increase the number of permanently affordable homeownership units. We are on track to meet the goal of having 85 affordable homes. We have 75 homes and have met 91% of the 2024 goal. This is a Habitat for Humanity project on Cobb Street. It will add 4 homes to the permanent affordable housing stock, and the town contributed $100,000 to its construction. This picture here is the side view from Broad Street, and over here, this is the interior view from the front unit. The construction team and volunteers are currently focused on installing the hardy plank siding and also shingling. And it's my understanding that the units should be completed in January, and they will be sold to income eligible families. Another identified strategy is to provide grants for critical home repairs, energy efficiency, and upfits to accommodate changing mobility. In collaboration with the Orange County Home Preservation Coalition, town funds were leveraged to preserve and repair 5 affordable homes located in the Lloyd Broad neighborhood, on Davie Road, and Eugene Street. Fewer homes were repaired in fiscal year 2021 than in previous years due to COVID. Many homeowners didn't want people in their homes, and what we found was that repairs this year were more urgent in nature, like major plumbing leaks, no heater cooling. We do expect larger but less urgent repairs will take place this coming spring, including weatherization projects. Our 2024 goal is to have 470 affordable units, rental units. We currently have 379, so we're at 81% of that goal. 7 units were added to the affordable rental stock with a $40,000 grant in town support for the major rehab of a Carrboro home on Hillsborough Road. Funding was used to meet HUD guidelines for permanent supportive housing, and the repairs also included energy efficiency features. And they are tentatively planning a ribbon cutting for February. We also contributed about $26,500 for the repair of 12 rental units in Hillmont and Collins Crossing. All of these units are owned by Empowerment, and the majority of the work focused on renovating kitchens and bathrooms and also included energy efficient modification. And now we'll touch on human services. The Human Services Program funds programs that improve education, livelihood security, and health outcomes for Carrboro residents. The program's goal is to achieve economic and social well-being and opportunities to thrive for all residents, particularly those who are low income or otherwise disenfranchised. The town provides grants to nonprofits through a once-a-year joint application process. Applications are founded in the council-adopted strategic results framework to track progress and gauge community impact. Nonprofits submit applications and present at hearings to the joint Chapel Hill and Carrboro Human Services Commissions. And funding recommendations are made by those commissions to the town council. Fiscal year 2021 saw the highest amount of requests to date, totaling over $550,000, with $274,000 being granted to 45 nonprofits. And based on conversations with nonprofits over the summer, we anticipate another year of high request amounts. Breaking it down further, health, mental health, food, housing represented 62% of grants. And the category entitled Assistance and Empowerment is really just that. It's organizations like the Community Empowerment Fund, Refugee Community Partnership, El Centro, the Rape Crisis Center, organizations that help and empower people. And then the other category includes organizations like the Dispute Settlement Center and some other organizations that don't necessarily fit into specific spheres. The Human Services Results Framework captures demographic data so that we can see who is being served. Race and ethnicity data is shown here. The application also asks for numbers of people served by age, gender, and municipality. And these figures here show actual fiscal year 1920 numbers served in funding programs. So key takeaways, in terms of emergency housing assistance, the collaboration between Orange County and the towns has allowed for a truly coordinated, comprehensive program that has successfully prevented evictions for over 500 Carrboro residents during the pandemic. In terms of housing goals, the town has continued to advance the town's our affordable housing goals by supporting the creation and preservation of homeownership and rental units, and is on track to meet the established 2024 goals. And finally, the town was able to fund about 50% of requests from nonprofits, and we still know that Carrboro residents continue to have additional needs. In terms of next steps, we will continue centering race and equity, working on getting the Affordable Housing Advisory Commission and Human Services Commission trained with the GARE training. And then once the One Orange Racial Equity Plan is approved, we'll begin analyzing departmental practices, policies, and procedures through a racial equity assessment lens. In terms of climate action, we expect with the COVID cases going down that we'll have additional weatherization projects, and we'll continue to partner with the Preservation Coalition and work to integrate climate action strategies. The manufactured home park strategy, a draft is complete and has been reviewed by the Home Collaborative. It's currently out for review by advisory boards and will be brought back for elected official review. Town-owned land, we are in the process of using a town-owned parcel of land for affordable housing on Hill Street. The PB Homes rezoning was approved, which will bring 3 new small rental homes to Carrboro for people earning below 30% AMI. And we'll be working with the AHAC and with the comp plan recommendations for a process to proceed with other town-owned parcels. And then I'm so sorry that this got left out of the memo I prepared, but in terms of the $50,000 set aside for an employee housing assistance program, we've met with Chapel Hill staff to hear about their lessons learned from their implementation of a similar program, and are working with our human resources staff on some additional data collection before bringing it back to you. It's been an amazing year, and thank you for your dedication to affordable housing and community services, and for your time tonight. And I look forward to your questions and comments.
All right, so thank you so much, Rebecca, and to the rest of your staff in community housing and services. And you know, it's been a ton of work. You know, you presented all that information with the food and the emergency housing assistance. And so all that was a heavy lift. And I I love it because, we rose to the occasion, together. And we got community members what they needed. And that's really what's important because we're here to serve them. And so just a great report and thank you so much. And I think I see Damon and Sammy to start and Susan. Damon, Sammy, Susan.
Thank you, Barbara. Rebecca, thanks so much for the concise and really compelling presentation. It's nice to see all these updates in one place. And I really only have one question, but mainly I just wanted to thank you, and I see that Anne Marie is here as well, for all of the work. And in particular, since I've been able over the past couple of years to be the liaison from the council to the commission, the Affordable Housing Advisory Commission, just seeing the both of you guide the commission through their work, provide the information they need to make good decisions, and really kind of encourage them to continue to engage in the process in a constructive way. It's really helpful, and I just appreciate all the work y'all are doing to make that happen. One question, I feel like we saw an update memo from the staff, or maybe an email from you or the manager at one point in the last few weeks indicating that the funds that Carrboro has put into the Emergency Housing Assistance Program, that there are funds remaining in the program for Carrboro residents, and that it's a pretty significant amount. And I've been sort of trying, maybe I'm not right about that, but you can help me understand what that amount is. I've been trying to tell some folks in the community that, we are still looking to offer assistance to folks who need help with rent and so on, and that there are funds available. But maybe you could, I thought I saw the number $700,000. Is that right? Can you help us understand what that is?
So I think now it's closer to $500,000, but at the rate that we are expending it, we only anticipate it lasting through December and maybe January.
So there would be some room for us to be thinking about that priority as we go into the next year. And I'll just put a plug in. I think many of us have in mind the money that we know is coming with the American Rescue Plan Act. But I think we all understand that, especially now that the eviction moratoriums have ended at the state and federal levels, that housing security is going to continue to be a big issue for us. So thanks again, Rebecca and Anne Marie. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
So I have Sammy, Susan, and Jackie.
Thanks, Anne Marie and Rebecca. Amazing work. It's so timely too, given what COVID represented. And I'm glad we were able to help people out and have the resources from both the state and federal government to do so. And we already had our funds to not wait for them. It was really essential work. I just want to plug and encourage, as part of our thinking of maximizing affordable housing, the county's recent program for tax relief on the assessments on homes for 80% area median income. And we should definitely be promoting and leveraging and sending messages out through our networks, making use of our social media platforms to let people know that, and because it's time sensitive, that there is this relief, and we need to leverage it in Carrboro. While it is a county program, it's our job to make sure our citizens are tapping into it and maximizing. So I very much encourage you to work with other staff to spread the word as much as possible. The other thing is, in terms of our comprehensive plan, there are various metrics, and similar to our affordable housing plan, we've got those goals. We set them so that we could achieve them, which is good. Feels really good to hear we're meeting our goals. We also have climate action plans, and one of the things I keep encouraging us to be more intentional about is setting a goal, and specifically identifying how many affordable housing units are there, both rental and ownership, in Carrboro. And for us to, because our climate action plan is to take action within the next 10 years. So what would it take to weatherize every single affordable housing unit in Carrboro, both rental and home ownership, and to leverage the partnerships such as the Home Preservation Coalition, which leverages the state weatherization assistance program monies. Our community action agency, provides those services. So that, again, the opportunity to augment that work, because for the first time in forever, met their quota on weatherizing homes, and they're the experts at it. So, once we have that metric, how many homes are there that have the potential for weatherizing in Carrboro, and breaking that down annually, and then we can talk to the Community Action Agency to understand how far off they are given what their quotas are, and then we can leverage both affordable housing monies and climate action funds. And hopefully we'll have the federal funds through the reconciliation vote, which would really turbocharge everything. So again, I'm every chance I get, I'm plugging that. I would very much like for there to be an effort in breaking that down at a minimum to inform the comprehensive planning process, so that when we hit that what that goal is, it's an informed discussion that we'll have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Slade. And I just wanted to say that Mayor Pro Tem Fushi mentioned last week about tracking naturally occurring affordable housing and having a feel for those number of units. And the comprehensive plan does have that information. And that's a next step that we can certainly take, is to look at, what financially what it would take to do that work for weatherization, and certainly bring it to the Preservation Coalition.
Thank you. Thank you, Sammy and Rebecca. I think we're going to Susan, Jackie, and then Randy.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And so I've heard the word leverage used a few times this evening. And Rebecca, I think that that word applies to you and your staff in terms of how you have leveraged yourself. When you hear of all of the different activities you all are involved in, you would think it was a staff of 20, and it's a staff of 3. So we appreciate how you all have worked together and leveraged yourselves to help Carrboro not make it through perfectly, but make it through a lot better than we sure thought we would be at this point, 18 months ago. So thank you for that. I did want to mention that Rebecca and I served together on the Home Consortium, and there's sort of an interesting idea that's been tossed around there in terms of leveraging. And then Rebecca, after I talk, feel free to share a few more words about this. But so in Wake County, just recently, the Board of Commissioners approved of a new affordable housing fund to help preserve the naturally occurring affordable housing. And the county will cede $10.5 million to this affordable housing fund. There will be additional funding from the municipalities, but what makes it unique is that it's also opened up for contributions from corporations and foundations and nonprofit organizations and other local organizations. So it's a really neat way of sort of leveraging these non-governmental dollars to have more funding to really tackle this. And so as what the consortium has been talking about is we can get better in terms of having a clear county-wide plan on affordable housing. This may be something that we want to look at as well here in Orange County, is looking for some of these other ways that we can be tapping in to sort of diversify our revenue stream, if you will. And Rebecca, I didn't know if you wanted to say a few more words about that, or...
I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly, and I think leverage is the key word there. I will just note in the attachment D, I mentioned collaboration with the Big Bold Ideas Affordable Housing Task Force, I'll call it. And that's one of the things that they are recommending, which is that we leverage outside funds and that we look at, private equity, that we look at all of the different possibilities. And I did talk briefly with finance about the possibility of opening up some sort of portal for the town to accept donations. There are some financial stipulations around that, but I think it's a great idea, and so we'll see where it goes. But I'm glad that the collaborative is taking up that idea.
Right.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Good,
Thank you so
Susan.
much. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Randy, and then Jackie.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say how much Rebecca, your work and Anne Marie's work has yielded. You know, sometimes we don't see results of our work for years. In a very short window of a few years here, to know that those critical goals are being met are huge. It also speaks to the level of collaboration and cooperation that is now unprecedented. I don't think it's ever been what it is today on addressing homelessness, folks who are at or below 30% AMI. So I think that the partnerships that have been built are very different from the work that has gone on in the past. I do want to add that forging ahead with public-private partnerships is something that's been rather successful, and folks are finding that it's a way of sustaining programs and affordability. Sammy made two very good points that we should follow up on. With folks who are concerned about the tax relief, one of the things that we need to get to is folks having assistance to do the paperwork. It's one thing to know that the opportunity is out there. One of the things that I have found is we need to have a game plan to be able to say to folks, if you want to do this, not only is it out there, but here's the folks to go to get assistance in doing the paperwork. Because a lot of folks are skittish about pushing back, and they're concerned to do it right. So I just want to make a plug for that. And I think the second point, when Sammy talked about weatherization, what is the relationship, if any, between our revolving loan funds monies that addressed weatherization and anything else that's coming down the pike? Is there a way to bolster that program and the work that that program did and catapult it forward to support?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell. I've met with John Hartman Brown and Laura Janway about the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund and the way it's currently structured. John, wants it to remain a loan fund, which I completely support, so that it continues to generate income. For the households that we serve, often loans are burdensome and not necessarily what they want to take on. So we have talked about it. We've talked about, is there a way to kind of carve out a set aside that could be low grants, as part of that program? And we've talked about it. We haven't quite come to a plan yet, but I think that it's a good point and something we can look into more.
Can loans possibly be sponsored? When we talk about public-private partnerships, can there be sponsorship of loans?
I don't know. That might be a question to bring to our finance department and get back to you on that. Okay.
Isn't Arch on here? Didn't I see him somewhere?
Arch, are you here? Do you want to comment on that?
Well, you can get back to me, but I'd like that answered, because I think one of the other tools that could be in the toolbox is having that sponsorship. When we talk about leveraging, when we talk about public-private partnerships, to have grants that are, that are specified, that can be part of that program, that can assist individuals who might be, they wouldn't be eligible for loans.
All right, Randy, right on. And I see Jackie's hand.
Thank you. I think our community owes both of you just such a debt of gratitude, and all of our staff and all of our volunteers for getting us through the pandemic as well as we did. I know you both worked incredibly hard, and you were doing it for much more than a paycheck. And I know that. Now that we're beginning to emerge from the pandemic, hopefully emerge from the pandemic, I would be real interested at some point in stepping back and doing like a lessons learned meeting or a lessons learned retreat almost. How could we have been better prepared? Other than having had a different president, how could we have been better prepared for the pandemic? How do we look at what do we need when these things strike? Because we've learned, we know that now, and not just pandemic, other kinds of emergencies. What fissures did we discover that we kind of knew were there, but the pandemic brought them to even greater light? What needs did we discover? And just kind of to do a to do a review of lessons learned and needs discovered as we've struggled through the past year. So not only can we prepare for if there, God forbid, were to be another one or a similar disaster, but what did we learn about our community that maybe we kind of knew, but now we really know? And how do we use those two things to move forward? So kind of a debriefing of what we learned. I know, as a member of the Human Services, as a liaison to the Human Services Commission, we went through an awful lot there and hearing about community needs and how to prioritize, right? So I just want to put it out there that sometime when the dust begins to settle a little bit, and this is not to criticize the work you've done at all, I think it was amazing, but what did we as a community learn, and how can we use that to make some changes or be better prepared? So again, thank you both so much for everything you did.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. And so I had some final comments if nobody else has anything. So, and I know I've heard us mention this before about this synergy and the various issues kind of running in tandem and trying to figure out how to tie them all together. I mean, Sammy mentioned it tonight. And so I'm thinking about, the AHAC, our newly formed climate action team, our racial equity commission. So, and just trying to figure out how to get everybody, kind of talking and sharing. And so, so that's something that I was thinking about. I think that's really useful, not just for the three I mentioned, but also some other ones. And I see, Rebecca, that you had on here about the race and equity work. So it brings me to the Racial Equity Commission, and race and equity is a pillar, with a lot of things that we're doing now within the town. And so how do you see the Racial Equity Commission coming in and also, I guess, engaging our racial equity officer at some point? How is all that coming together within your department and with you and Anne Marie's work?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Fushi. It's perfect timing for you to bring that up. This morning in management team, we talked about just that question and how to make sure that each and every agenda item, each and every thing that we're considering is brought to the attention of the racial equity officer and the commission. And Mr. White, talked about creating a process for us all to do that, not just for affordable housing, but for all departments. So I think it's a good question, and I think it's one that we will be working on.
Thank you, Rebecca. I mean, the tie-in is just so, I've heard almost everybody in here, if not tonight, at some other time, talk about issues running in tandem, you know, the synergy, you know, and how a lot of things can just work together, and we just start, you know, coming up with different solutions, not just within a certain area like climate action, for example, but also with affordable housing, and just tying, you know, starting to tie things together. So I appreciate everybody's comments in your presentation as well. Does anybody else have anything? We ready to? Oh, Sammy.
Yes, one more thing I made note here and forgot to mention is in terms of parking, you know, housing cost plus T. In our affordable housing strategies, it identifies that as an opportunity to look into, and it refers to the comprehensive plan as a potential place to further develop that. But I think the comprehensive plan is then saying, oh, we need to look into it. So the point of, you know, really, we need to stop kicking that can down the road, because it is also a climate action opportunity. It's affordability. And in terms of when we think of reducing parking requirements for affordable housing projects, we need to think more broadly. Affordable housing is not just for 80% below AMI, it's affordable housing all around. And to the extent that the cost of parking, especially when we're talking about condominiums and higher density areas of our downtown, and the potential for that in the future, you know, that represents a real significant cost, as we clearly have learned through our experience of the parking deck and what those spaces represent. So the idea of unbundling parking beyond just affordable housing projects, more generally, just affordable, any project, and really leaving that up to the developers. So many developers are already hesitant to build without parking because they're afraid of the market and what it would do. And I think we can facilitate by reducing one more barrier that they have to get through to see that maybe this is a viable thing for offering, as so many other communities are doing. So I just want to put a finger on that as we're going through and further refining our affordable housing strategies and goals, and working through our comprehensive plan and thinking of climate action goals. That's another low-hanging fruit for us to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy.
Is it okay if I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to also call out Zakel Hall, who isn't here tonight, who, when I think Councilmember Haven O'Donnell said something about assistance with paperwork in terms of things, and she has helped so many members in our community with things like that, whether it's for EHA or just rental agreements or things like that. And she's not here, but she also is a really integral part of our team, as is Anne Marie and our community partners and the other local governments. It takes a village. We could not do it without any of them. So thank you all. I really appreciate your comments and insight tonight.
Mm-hmm. That's what's up, Rebecca. Thank you so much. I don't think there was, I think we don't have a resolution or anything. It's a report. There's nothing else, right?
Right.
Okay, thanks. Have a good night, Rebecca and Anne Marie. I see you down there, Anne Marie.
Thank you both.
Mr. White, you want to go to the next item?
Yes, the next item is the transportation projects update, and the purpose of this item is to update the council on the status of transportation projects within the town. And our transportation planner, Zach Halleck, will present this one. There's a resolution for this item.
Okay. Oh, this is the one where I think we got the correct resolution sent to us. I think Councilmember Romaine had pointed that out. So does everybody have the correct resolution? Yes, thanks. Oh, there's Zach. Hey, Zach.
Good evening. Give me 1 second and I will get my slides up. There we go. Can you all, is that clear? Do you see my Zoom on here still? Hopefully that. All right. Well, good evening then, everyone. This is the transportation projects update. I'll be going through the projects and the progress we've made so far kind of over the course of the summer. I'll be talking really hitting the high points of the ones that we've seen a lot of movement on, and then I'll kind of touch on some other projects towards the end as well. First and foremost, Jones Ferry Road. This is the protected bike lane. We had gone through an encroachment agreement process with Ncdot. Some design work was developed by Josh Dalton of Sungate. This was installed back on August 11th. Really with the intent of kind of being a pilot program for this sort of treatment. This was something that we had been looking into possible treatments out here for a number of years. This originated as a spot safety project that kind of changed the cross section out here, added in that buffered bike lane. And so what we're really hoping to use this as an opportunity to kind of assess this treatment, its effectiveness, input from users of the transportation system. We'll be doing some more speed and volume counts, as well as bicycle and pedestrian counts out here, and really coordinating with Public Works on maintenance issues, questions about how do we handle this during the winter months if we have to deal with snow plowing. So as this moves forward, we'll have some further updates and really looking to see how this idea can be replicated in other areas of town. It was relatively low cost. It's something we can do with an existing pavement width, so it keeps costs relatively low. And I know that protected bike lanes were certainly something we heard a lot about during the bike plan update last year. So we want to look for opportunities to expand this where we can. Next are the Ncdot ADA upgrades. This is something that's kind of been on the radar for a while. A little over a year ago, when there had been some changes at Ncdot, there were budget constraints that kind of caused some of their projects to be put on hold. We now have a better timeline for a lot of these ADA projects, most of which will be completed sometime next year. A large block will be done on the summer. Several locations along Highway 54 at West Main Street, Old Fayetteville, West Poplar, and Smith Level, as well as North Greensboro at Robert Hunt, Hillsboro, and Oak, and then a number of locations along East Main Street in downtown. Greensboro, the driveway by Carrboro Police Department, the intersection with East Weaver, the intersection with Lloyd, the driveway to 300 East Main, West Rosemary, and Boyd, and then a number of other locations. These are kind of corridors where there's a number. I don't have specific driveway or ramp locations, but these will be going in possibly as early as the spring, but certainly will be done before the end of October next year, including West Main Street, Jones Ferry, South Greensboro at the bottom of the hill, and then some locations along Rogers Road as well. Next, the Estes Greensboro Roundabout was substantively complete as of September. We know there are still some issues we continue to monitor out here, questions about landscaping and signage and what we might be able to do with the opportunities in the middle of the roundabout. And really this question, this access to the Francis Shetley and making sure it's really clear that this is just for bikes. We've been working with Ncdot about signage and other opportunities, and we're kind of just continuing to monitor what's going on out here. I also do want to give a shout out both for this and for Jones Ferry to our Public Works Department. They do a lot of more of the physical legwork than I do when it comes to putting things in, making things become real. I tend to be looking at them from maps, but Dylan and his streets crew and Public Works were the ones who did the installation for Jones Ferry. So big shout out to them, and Mike Thompson helps out on some of these inspection type things at the roundabout as well.
Zach, sorry to interrupt. From the previous slide, when you say ADA upgrades, could you just describe briefly for me to understand, and sorry for my ignorance, what exactly is meant by that?
Yeah, it's places that did not meet the ADA standards and had to be brought up to meet that standard. So it's making sure they have the tactile domes, and then I believe making sure the ramps are aligned properly with crosswalks, things like that. I can go research the specific details as to exactly what's being done, but it's those types of treatments.
Okay, thanks.
Next are NC 54 crossing improvements. We've discussed this several times in the past. These are a couple of recommendations that came out of the bike ped safety study that was completed in 2019. We've been working with Chapel Hill and Chapel Hill Transit and NCDOT and our MPO to identify some funding sources. And so we have basically identified a rough timeline for implementation of signalized pedestrian crossings at both of these locations. The next kind of major milestone, NCDOT has offered to manage the design, construction, and the bid process of this project, which helps streamline that significantly. When we're looking at design for this project starting either later this year or early 2022, these are some pretty substantial connectivity benefits in terms of connecting across 54 from the apartments on the north and to the streets on the south, whether that's Westbrook or Abbey Lane, and then continued connectivity to the future Morgan Creek Greenway and down onto Smith Level Road. A fairly impressive turnaround. I believe the town had written a letter in 2018 about the safety concerns out here, which prompted that bike ped safety study, and we now have at least rough expectation of a timeline, and as that develops, we'll provide more information. Some other items of note for update: the NCDOT statewide prioritization process, or SPOT 6.0, due to the budgetary issues they've been having, NCDOT made the decision to essentially spread out the state transportation improvement program over a longer period of time. So spending the same amount of money over a larger number of years to kind of help smooth out the budget. And because of that, they have canceled the prioritization 6.0. There were a couple of projects that we had submitted to that. One was the Sewell School Road side path, and the other was the intersection improvements along NC 54 at Old Fayetteville and at West Main Street. As this develops, we'll continue to provide more information. The next is the North-South Bus Rapid Transit. An update was provided to the transit partners back in August. As a result of this delay of the STIP, the funding year that the NSBRT was scheduled to receive funding was pushed out several years, resulting in the need to either, one, delay the overall project, or two, look at other avenues for funding. Chapel Hill Transit staff are kind of going through those options, and I think I have scheduled an update with the policy and steering committee meetings for early next week. The Orange County Transit Plan update is still underway. There had been a policy committee retreat held back in July, and the decision was made to pivot a bit from the initial scope of that plan and to engage in a little more visionary work. And the Orange County staff and the consultant are working to revise that scope of work, and we'll continue to provide updates as this develops. Then our traffic calming projects. First off, a Starlight Drive, that when we presented some information to council back in June, and council asked us to look into the option of a pedestrian lane and get some feedback from the residents there. So far, we've gotten in touch with about 30% or so of the residents who live along Starlight. There's been a relatively even split between folks who do want the pedestrian lane, folks who don't want it simply because it's going to require the removal of on-street parking. There has been fairly level support from everyone interested in traffic calming devices like speed tables. So we'll continue to reach out to the neighbors there and get better responses as we compile those, and we'll bring additional information back as we're moving forward. Then Carroll Street, this was another traffic calming project that was installed as an interim measure back in July. These were it was a neck down and a set of chicanes and a curb extension at Lorraine. We're continuing to kind of monitor. We're going to do some data collection later this month so we can get we did some before measurements of speed and volume, and we're going to do some after measurements once they've been in place for several months. So we'll have an assessment of effectiveness. We'll present that information at a neighborhood meeting with the residents and talk about, do they like them? Do they want to make these more permanent? are they effective? And we'll bring additional information back to council as needed. Then the speed limits on unpaved streets, we've done 2 mailings so far. First one was done in about March, and a follow-up mailing was done in July to try to raise our response rates. We've got about 6 different streets. We're at a 70% response rate. So we'll look at an opportunity to bring back some town code amendments for those streets. There had been a number of questions that had been sent into staff in advance of this, and I just want to take a little time and go through some of those really quickly. Some questions about the U6071 STIP project. That's the NC54 reduced conflict intersection design. I understand some of the concerns that have been raised, that it's not necessarily the best environment for folks who are walking and biking. And those concerns are shared. We'll continue to monitor the design process when this continues to move forward. If that design doesn't look like it's meeting the town's interests, we do have the opportunity to withdraw this project from future consideration. With regards to the bike loops project, that's one we're looking to bid out later next year around the same time as the East Main Street work. But the question was raised of, is there anything we can do kind of as an interim solution? Can we not just put all of the traffic signals on automatic recall so that the side streets will always get a phase whether or not there's a vehicle on the loop? This matters for bikes because they're not big enough to trip the standard size vehicle loops, which is why we need the bike loops. We can reach out to Chapel Hill Traffic Engineering and see if that's something they can consider, and we'll provide some more information once we have it. There had been a number of questions related to sidewalks and crosswalks. The West Main Street sidewalk section, that's one that's been programmed in the Orange County Transit Plan. I don't think it was ever in that pedestrian safety projects table, just because that was something that was developed by the TAB, but it's still on our radar. We'd also expect that once we have a timeline for that as part of that design process, to look at crossings for West Main Street there, either at Poplar or at Fidelity, as part of the design process. There was a question raised about crosswalks near High Street and whether or not a sidewalk would be required on High Street. The thing we want to look into, and we'll follow up with NCDOT about this question of receiving infrastructure. If we were to say build enough of a landing pad that could receive a crosswalk and then kind of tie into the street, acknowledging there had been previously programmed sidewalk there. The residents didn't express interest in not wanting it. Can we get the crossings without requiring and going through the process for a sidewalk? That's something we're looking to get some better answers on. The crosswalk at James Street at West Main, this was one we've talked with NCDOT about. They've kind of requested that we do some additional analysis and consult with some engineers about the analysis that would be needed for that. So it's on our radar. As far as why it wasn't in the pedestrian safety projects table, that was really a effort that was undertaken by the TAB back in 2018 and 19. So the James Street intersection has popped up a little more recently. A request to consider an all-way stop for the Libby-Cotton at Brewer Lane. That's something we can certainly look into. I think our first steps there are to go and get some vehicle counts for Brewer Lane. We have good bike and ped data for the Libby-Cotton because of the continuous counter, but we just want to be able to see if the daily volumes are looking pretty balanced at the same times of the day, then it makes a lot of sense to look at an all-way stop there. We'd probably also look at making the stop signs on the Libby-Cotton more visible as well. And lastly, we had with regards to the unpaved streets, I think we'll be able to share the addresses we've received responses for. In our kind of mailing, we've asked that people provide their address in their response form. Not all of them provided an address, but we'll provide the information that we've received so far. And with that, I will open it to questions.
Thank you, Zach. Can you stop? Well, no, keep sharing your screen because there might be questions. I see Jackie and Sammy so far. So Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for the work you're doing. I'm a little concerned about the Bardell neighborhood. told them back in early spring that we would be having a meeting with the neighborhood about several issues. And I know you've put, we've put some temporary things up to kind of test them and see how that goes. The neighborhood's very anxious to talk to Richard since he's new, and to talk to you, Zach. And I keep seeing that pushed out. I know you're all trying and you've put in some kind of you're testing out some methods, but they really need to be meeting. So do we have that scheduled yet?
Yeah, and so thank you, Jackie. I see Mr. White's hand raised. I thought, okay, so I thought the Bardell Creek community also wanted to meet about stormwater. So is this meeting like multiple issues?
Yeah, my understanding was that it was going to be about all the issues that they're facing. And
I thought that was supposed to be this month, Jackie. Is that what you?
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be pretty soon, but it hasn't been scheduled, and we really, ideally it would have been in September, but we need to get on that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Mr. White, do you want to go for Sammy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilwoman Gibbs, we're working on that. In fact, I'll be in touch this week to begin to set that meeting up with the neighborhood. So I'll be in touch this week to get that process underway.
Thank you.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. White. I think Sammy, is Sammy? Oh, there he is.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks. Zach, like the previous presentation, it is impressive how much so many staff members have on their plate, and I commend you for keeping track of so many balls, and I appreciate your response to my questions. It's totally understandable how you don't include everything in the reports. I just wanted to make sure that we keep track of them, and I'm glad that you are. I was very appreciative of the link to NCDOT's resurfacing the planner that they have. Is really interesting to see that they make that available publicly. I'm grateful for your including that in the summary. It looks like North Greensboro Street resurfacing will be happening soon. I think you mentioned in your report that there's an opportunity there to provide better bike facilities. And I presume we'll get more into detail. That looks like it's coming up very soon, the resurfacing. I'm just, I guess, wanted to get a sense from you as to what the timing is for us to have input on that, and what are we thinking beyond what's already there?
Yeah, so that would be much like we've recently gone through this process with East Main Street. While this surfacing has been delayed, there are similar sorts of opportunities. I think there's kind of two clear different sections there on North Greensboro. There's a section that would require some additional analysis to determine if we could consider reducing the number of vehicle lanes and adding in bike lanes. That's really the gap from where the bike lane ends, kind of around Shelton, all the way to the signal at Weaver Street. And that's there's some time for data collection and analysis. That resurfacing isn't scheduled, I believe, until 2024. So we still have a significant amount of time, but we do want to start thinking about these things now. The section north of Shelton, there's not a whole lot of, there's nothing to really play around with, right? It's one lane in each direction and one bicycle lane in each direction. But the thing we want to keep looking for opportunities for is to implement the plans in the bike plan. And one of the things in the bike plan was protected bike lanes. So I think contingent on how this Jones Ferry Road project goes, if we're successful in maintaining these devices over the winter and Public Works is comfortable installing them in other places, we would look at reaching out to NCDOT and recommending some basic pavement marking changes to make a sort of buffer space between the travel lanes and the bicycle lane, and then look at installing a similar sort of protected bike lane.
Great, thanks, Zach, for that summary. That's very helpful. In terms of bicycle lane protection, it seems like some areas have more space for perhaps a more substantial kind of protection, like cement barriers, like Chapel Hill is down on Franklin Street. And I'd very much encourage you to think of a range of treatments that we could consider depending on how much room there is. As studies have shown, the safer people feel about biking, the more likely they are to do it. And that translates into, more substantial than little plastic flags. While that's great, I think it's better to have something more substantial. So in terms of the crosswalk on Hillsborough Street and this question of a landing that NCDOT requires, I've noticed that on MLK in Chapel Hill, there is a crosswalk to a side of the street that doesn't have a sidewalk, but it does have a bus stop. And that apparently is sufficient for them. And there happens to be a bus stop on High Street right near the corner. And there is currently a landing pad on that corner too. So if funds are probably not available, and there's a question about a willingness by the neighbors still, so sidewalk may be further out, but in lieu of a sidewalk, maybe looking at a little sidewalk to a formal bus stop on that corner, and that would likely satisfy NCDOT's requirements for allowing a crosswalk there. So I very much encourage you to look into that opportunity. Thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. White, do you have your hand up to speak again, or was that from the last time?
Yes, I need to lower my hand. Thank you.
And Jackie, do you have another question? Is your hand up from the last time?
It is up from the last time.
Okay, great.
There it goes.
All right, we're good. So we go to Randy and then Susan.
Kind of reminds me of the students in the classroom. They keep their hand up while they're asking the question.
Okay, my hand is for real. I have just a few really quick questions. Zach, thanks so much for your presentation. And yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. You juggle a lot of balls, and I don't know how you do it, but we appreciate it. Mostly I was just looking for clarification on a few things, Zach. One is the unpaved road speed limits. I wasn't sure when you're gathering these survey responses, are you taking the average for each street, and then whatever that average is, that will be the speed limit on each of the 13 unpaved streets? Or will you take the responses and all 13 unpaved streets, whatever the average is, all 13 unpaved streets will have the same speed limit, which seems maybe like a more reasonable way to go, but I wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah, so a little bit of background on that. I think this sort of process developed from a similar request for Laughing Bird Lane. I try to remember if it was the end of 2019 or so. And we used this similar sort of process. We did a mailing to the neighbors, kind of asked them to indicate their local preference. And so they got the speed limit that was preferred among the neighbors. I think each street is going to have its own speed limit based on what we hear. As far as how that kind of gets decided upon based on the responses we get, we hadn't really made a decision. You could either consider, what's the most popular and gets the most votes, or an average among the responses. A lot of times, the most popular one is also what the average is, just because of how the math tends to work out. But in the rare case that it's not, or that there's a tie, an average probably makes sense. But every street would likely have its own speed limit that reflects what we hear from them.
Okay. Question about the grassy area within the roundabout. I was, and this has come up about local artists displaying some of their works there as sort of like a nice entranceway into the downtown. And I was a little confused what you said. Were you saying we're still waiting to hear from DOT in terms of whether or not we can do that?
So NCDOT has a specific public art policy that really sets out the guidelines for those sorts of installments within their rights of way. So we can look at having conversations. I think it was raised with something for the Arts Committee to look at. I know other advisory boards have expressed interest into what the potential modifications could be, whether it's different types of landscaping or art features. And so we would just need to keep in mind that anything that we were going to install would both need to A, conform to NCDOT policies, and B, if there's any maintenance associated with it, we would be responsible for it. So those are all things to kind of keep in mind. But yeah, we can look at start getting those conversations started.
Great, great. And so another question in terms of traffic calming. I know that some neighbors in Lake Hogan Farms were concerned about the speed at which, some folks were driving through the neighborhood. I thought they were putting together a petition for a traffic study, and I've lost touch on that. But are there any updates on where things are with a traffic study in Lake Hogan Farms?
Yeah, I've been in communication with Mrs. Michelle Mahoney, I think, who submitted the initial traffic calming request. And so she has a petition in her hands. It's just a process of getting all the necessary signatures.
Gotcha.
But
Thank you.
Moving forward.
Great. And final thing, again, question over in this neck of the woods. So one of the things I'm asked all the time is, when will the Jones Creek Greenway be done? And I was really happy to read, it sounds like design plans are now at almost 90%. Staff will be meeting with Ncdot, I think later this month, to go over some design questions. And so just in terms, I know it's really hard to predict, and I know, life gets in the way. But given where we are right now, would you be thinking that the Jones Creek Greenway would be done in the next 6 months, the next year, the next couple of years? What does your gut tell you?
My gut tells me if it was done within the next year, that would be fantastic. We've run into a couple hurdles in terms of getting things reviewed by Ncdot, so things have taken a little longer than necessary, but they are still progressing. I think once we have a better sense of an actual timeline, we'll provide a separate update, as in you won't have to wait for the next transportation projects update to get a better sense of that.
Okay. Thanks for pushing it along, Zach. Appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I think Randy, you have your hand up. You're next.
Yeah. Thank you, Zach. One of the things that happened as I was pouring through this is that you realize just how widespread all this work is. I mean, it's all over the map, literally. So I wanted, just take a moment to really appreciate it and the effort that it takes to not only understand each of these different particular parts of the project, but how the project has to fit together because the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So with that said, one of the questions I had to do with Barred Owl and the traffic calming. I'm really glad a conversation is going to happen. I know that folks are, they're particularly concerned because they're not sure about, what are the possibilities for traffic calming and in terms of Carroll Street and what's going to happen with Carroll Street and James Street. So I'm glad there's a meeting that will be set. I wanted to ask I had two more questions. Where in this is there a response to the interest in slow zones, or is that separate?
Yeah, so that's a separate conversation. I think there had been some work that the TAB had done back in late 2018. It kind of drafted an idea for a slow zone policy. We have that document, so staff are going to take some time and review that. And once we find an appropriate time, look at bringing something back to council. Okay. And Sammy had asked a question this afternoon that I wanted to just come behind. He had asked about the funny relationship between possibly having a crosswalk at Hillsborough Road to High Street from, let's say, from Cheek over to Hillsborough to High Street, and that the DOT would need to have the sidewalk infrastructure to do that. Can you explain, is that always the case with DOT, or is it in this particular case? And is that the only way that a crosswalk can be had
if sidewalk was to be the infrastructure needed for High Street to do that?
So I think we have some more confirmation to do with NCDOT. To Councilmember Slade's point, if something like an extension to a bus pad is sufficient, that might make more sense, because given the location of the existing bus stops out there and what the interests of the residents have been to not necessarily want the entire sidewalk, are there critical sections that we need that don't necessarily run the whole length of the street, but still meet NCDOT's interests in receiving infrastructure? And so we're going to reach out to NCDOT and see if we can get a clearer answer on that.
Yeah, and I would just say to please check with the neighbors on High Street. I am not hearing that they are in favor of sidewalks, and mostly because several of the homes are very close to the road. And I think before going forth with that assumption, please have the conversation. The neighbors are not even aware that this is in the plan this way, and that's of concern. They believe it was left as an open conversation a few years ago. Please, survey them, talk with them, each and every one of them, because if were this to go forth without them being consulted, that would be, a grave mistake. It really would. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. I don't see anybody else's hand. Damon, did you have any comments, or are you pretty good with the report?
Much gratitude as usual to Zach for all the great work, which we always love to comment on each of the specific individual projects, but I think as Randy and others have said, it's just you are sort of taking the entire town in your purview here, and it's I know it's a lot of work, so I just want to appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think I see anybody else's hand. I think we have our resolution that we received in our email. Is the resolution fine as is, council members? Any additions or changes, or we're good?
I'd like to move approval of the resolution.
Thank you, Damon.
Second.
Oh, sorry. Damon moved it and Jackie second. So now I can see everybody. So all in favor, please say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
And me, aye. So thank you, Zach. You're appreciated as always. I like Zach with the tie. Look at Zach. He got a tie on tonight.
Well, he got married, so he's dressing up.
Yeah. But it has bikes on it.
Even better. I love it.
The sun's still shining at Libba Cotton.
Oh no, he's still here, isn't he, for the next one? So he's not going anywhere. Mr. White, do you want to bring the last item, I believe?
Yes, our last item for tonight is review of the draft bike share RFP. This is an opportunity for council to discuss and comment on the beginnings of a request for proposal to select a bike share service provider to create a unified system for Carrboro, for Chapel Hill and UNC Chapel Hill. And Zach will walk us through this as well.
We get to keep Zach. Go, Zach.
All right. Can you all see that? All right. So this is a first look at the content that will be forming the beginning of the RFP to select a single bike share service provider that will operate in Carrboro, Chapel Hill, and the university. I will start with a little, there we go, a little bit of background information. The map on the screen is just a map of all of our jurisdictions to just get a better sense of the geography of the area we're trying to consider for a bike share. In terms of previous efforts, the first real impetus for bike share was the 2009 bike plan, which recommended identifying a bike share program to serve Carrboro. In 2015, a group of UNC students put together a bike share feasibility study that identified some general cost estimates and hub locations for a 10-station bike share system that had some significant capital investments. Since that time, there's been a lot of change in the bike share industry and in micromobility more broadly, in that there are a lot more of these sorts of decentralized systems operated by a private vendor that will essentially provide a service that is bike share that will be funded through the revenues from user fees or advertisements placed on bikes and vehicles, such that there isn't the same sort of large capital investment on the part of a municipality that might be needed to start one of these systems. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at when we're saying we want a RFP for a bike share provider. Then earlier this year, as part of preparation for what we thought might be a pilot bike share program, we brought you all some town code amendments that would essentially enable bike share or other micromobility within the town, as well as providing for regulations related to e-bikes and e-scooters and anything that would fall under the umbrella of micromobility, or what we often call shared active transportation systems. So something that it is a shared vehicle, whether that vehicle is a bike or a scooter, is kind of up to what we're looking to create here. And I know we're focusing on bikes. That brings us to today, wherein we saw the pilot as not necessarily being quite so feasible, given some of the time limitations that we had, and instead decided to focus on this RFP that would select a single service provider that would operate in both the towns and the university. Going back to kind of what we presented in April, and then other times we've talked about bike share in the past, there are kind of three critical features that we've heard from council. One is consistent geographic access through the lens of racial equity, so making sure that no neighborhood's left out or overlooked for service. Ensuring that vehicle types are available for community members of all abilities, some kind of 3 or 4-wheeled vehicle that doesn't require balancing, and then multiple different payment methods, whether that's a smartphone app, which a lot of these systems use, but also having a cash option or an in-person option, so that you're not required to have a cell phone or a smartphone to use the bike share system. I'll touch on a couple of next steps. So we're continuing our internal discussion related to integrating this racial equity question into our procurement process, as well as features of the bike share system. Staff will be meeting with our counterparts at Chapel Hill and UNC later this month, and we'll be taking back what we hear from you to incorporate that into this RFP. We're looking to provide an update on this draft sometime at the mid-November meeting. And then in keeping with sort of UNC's schedule, since they're the primary impetus for this, looking to get the RFP finalized in December, issued in January, with the goal of identifying a new bike share provider, given that the current contract ends in May of 2022. So our main sorts of discussion points tonight, things we're looking to get feedback from council on with regards to importance. Is there something we may have overlooked? We want to make sure what the points we're taking to these conversations reflect Carrboro's priorities. Things like, do we want to allow advertisements on bikes or bike share hubs? What is our desired fleet size? Is there a sort of goal we want to have for bike share bikes in Carrboro? Then considerations for, what's the maximum service area? Where exactly are the hub locations? Are there areas we want to advocate for? We've kind of started thinking about that in the attachment C that's in your packet. That is some neighborhoods we want to make sure aren't overlooked, and would include those specifically in the RFP. And then any other prioritization or important features you might help us identify. These are things that we would use essentially as part of our selection criteria. So if we know what's really important, we don't want to say, we're not necessarily going to assign points, but we know what our council is looking for, then we can select based on the responses that we get, or any other items that we haven't really covered. I know there's a lot of notes in that draft RFP that was included in the packet. And kind of with that, I will just I can leave this slide up or go back and forth as needed.
Okay, I see Damon's hand. Thank you. Thank you, Zach. So we'll start with Damon.
Thanks, Zach, for the brief presentation. On some of these questions, I would be interested in knowing what the conversation with Chapel Hill has been like, especially in terms of how they're kind of looking at the questions around, fleet size and, service area, prioritizing, reaching certain neighborhoods, that kind of thing. Just out of curiosity, would know kind of what factors they're taking into account so that we're, staying, since we are entering into this as a partnership, right? Start trying to be kind of consistent with approach. On the question of advertisements on bikes or hubs, I mean, I don't personally have strong feelings just because, I mean, we have ads on our buses, for example, right? It's not it actually provides a increasingly, or has provided a good source of some revenue for the system. So, but I'm more interested in terms of these other bullet points here, like what has the conversation been like with your counterparts in Chapel Hill, and do things seem to be moving in a particular direction? Or are there certain interests in place?
Yeah, so with regards to fleet size, we didn't have any real strong opinions on this. I think our kind of baseline starting point was understanding the number of bikes that UNC currently has now and understanding that's the hard minimum. Everything after that, we'll let the respondents, the RFP, describe the number of bikes they want to provide. I don't know if that number is that number 50 for Carrboro and 50 for Chapel Hill and 100 for the university. I've seen different things in different places, and I don't have a particularly strong opinion. It'd be interesting to see the range that we get from our respondents. As far as service area, I think our initial discussions were town limits makes a lot of sense, but at the same time, it's a pretty large area. So I think it's probably, yes, the whole service area is the town limits. The question of hub locations becomes one of, once we have a RFP respondent selected, there's always a contract negotiation process. And so the final hub locations and selection of those hubs would really be done in collaboration with the respondent that we select, and then input from the community. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of obvious ones, Town Hall, near the Future 203 project, but it's also good to get input from these vendors who have experience in doing it in other places and kind of see how we can get their experience to jive with our experience in Carrboro and make something that works best for our town.
Right, great. And then just one other point, it's not really a question, just kind of raising a point that I've raised on a couple of occasions before, as you know, is just keeping on top of this question of the vendor properly maintaining the equipment and the stations and so on, and also preventing things from being left in the way of pedestrian, all these kinds of things that have been experienced in some of our other communities in the Triangle, so that we're not creating problems for other users.
Yeah, to the same point, those are some requirements that we'll outline very clearly in the RFP, and then in the contract negotiation process, whatever the penalties for not complying with these requirements are will be laid out more clearly once we get to that stage.
Great. Thank you so much, Zach. Appreciate it.
I see, I saw Jackie and now I see Susan. So Jackie, Susan.
Thank you. And thank you for this, Zach. I think it's really exciting. I really like the idea of having 3- and 4-wheeled vehicles in there, particularly ones that may be self-powered. There are a lot of people in our community who are aging in community. And Orange County is currently working on their next senior plan with a lot of input. I would really like to see us have a little bit more input from the senior community, like go out to the Seymour Center and talk to them, talk to some of the people who are living in some of our senior residential facilities. I think it's a great way to provide mobility to people who may have limited mobility right now. But I love the idea of 3- and 4-wheeled vehicles. And I wonder if we could put a question in there about their services about their history of providing services to seniors who are aging in community. If we could, if the rest of the council agreed, I'd like that to be one of the questions.
Was that it, Jackie?
Yeah, I wanted some kind of response. Is it possible for us to put that in the RFP, that, like, how have they provided services to people who are aging in community?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so once we have our next staff discussion later this month, I'll certainly bring that question to the group. There hasn't been, it's certainly something we don't have in there, but I think there'd be some support for it.
And I think could get some really really good information from the Seymour Center about what that would look like and what the needs would be. They'd be good partners in that.
All right, thank you, Jackie. I'll go on to Susan.
Thank you.
I see Randy.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And that's a great question, Jackie. I would love to see that asked as well. So Zach, you mentioned a little while ago that the bike share programs are funded by user fees. And do you know, like, really roughly how much of the operating costs will be covered by user fees? I assume that UNC, Chapel Hill, Carrboro will all need to subsidize this.
So the baseline expectation is there's no financial contribution on the part of the town. All of this whole system is funded through a combination of the user fees, and then, as mentioned previously, if we're going to enable advertisements, that can help keep their costs down as well. So unless we wanted to do something, and these are some of the points that were in the draft RFP that was provided to you, do we want to subsidize for certain groups? Do we want to pre-purchase a certain number of trips, whether that's for town employees or other groups? Those are some things that might have costs associated with them. But for the baseline system without any other subsidies, there's no expectation of us paying anything to this vendor. They're coming in and providing a service. There might be some associated administrative and staff time, really. If I've heard other systems that will work with the municipality to provide a card that you can load cash onto. They'll need to be a place to administer that, so there might be staff time associated with it, but no direct contribution for the basic system. There might be things we want to look at, but no requirement.
So the idea on the ads would be additional revenue that would perhaps allow us to add some hubs that aren't particularly profitable to them. Is that why we would want to be doing the ads?
Yeah, that's something that can certainly help. I don't have a whole lot of experience with, what their margins are actually like, but kind of what I described previously, the contract negotiation process and selection of hub locations once we have a vendor, I think really emphasize the locations. We want to make sure we have hubs, even if they're not the best performing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a final question on that, Zach. So you mentioned in terms of the hubs, you had said, obviously the 203, the new home for the library, the town hall, those would be, really great hubs. So tell me how this works. All of the activity at the different hubs will be monitored. And then whoever has the contract will be making adjustments, I don't know, every 6 months, every year or something, because they're going to notice there was very little traffic at this hub. So they're going to close that and reopen another one and try and see how that goes. Is that the idea behind all of this?
Generally speaking, we don't have a hard, you have to reassess your hubs every so often. I think there's some benefit into not doing it too frequently, simply because if the hub you're used to using one day isn't there and there wasn't sufficient communication, that's a pretty big issue. So I think a little more research and maybe thought among our group with Chapel Hill and UNC about that question of how frequently should they be adjusting hub locations is something we can look into. I honestly don't think it's that frequently, partly because you want your users to get used to where your hubs are in the system. But yeah, maybe it's set a limitation on how frequently, such that they're not changing hubs every month. We wouldn't want that, but maybe, you know, quarterly is reasonable. I don't know. It's something for us to discuss. And if we have a recommendation, we'll be sure to provide it in the update in November.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's all for me. Thank you so much, Zach.
You're welcome.
And Zach, Randy, and then I just see Sammy's hand there.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. You know, I've long been a proponent of this. I'm glad to see that this is happening. Back in the day, we were working with UNC on the blue bike, and that it looked great on paper. It's tricky logistically, and that was then. What I was going to ask something along the lines what Jackie was asking about regarding seniors and folks who are differently abled in terms of a one aspect of the project being focused on those needs. I know that in general, the bike programs and the vendors don't look that way. Is there some kind of a partnership that can be with the Orange County, you know, the Partnership on Aging and maybe the Seymour Center, as Jackie pointed out, in order to formalize something that addresses differently abled or seniors who want to just be able to do a bike share right downtown when they get to Carrboro. And that was part of that library checkout concept that we've been talking about, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah, so similar to the discussion, you know, asking us to put something in the RFP so that respondents might describe how they will best serve elderly riders, then perhaps a similar sort of question about how would you coordinate with a aging services department or something similar. Describe your experience in coordinating these efforts, you know, so we get an understanding of what they've done, and then maybe even ask them to describe how they might do it here. I think those are all valid questions we can include in the RFP.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. And you know, it's not just seniors. There's a lot of folks who are not fit and able, in addition to not being young, who, you know, if they knew they could just bike around downtown in safe places, they might try it, you know, and that is the hope. I also wanted to know if, regarding the library anyway, as a hub, we talked a little bit about the potential for EV bikes, you know, the electric bikes. And I just wanted to ask if that's being talked about at all.
Yeah, so actually the way the industry has kind of shifted, these are primarily going to be electric assist bikes of some form. We're asking respondents to kind of describe what their technology is, whether it's a throttle assist or a pedal assist. But our expectation is these will be primarily e-bikes, but we're also asking them if they have the ability to provide some standard pedal bikes. That's nice. And then additionally, if they can provide a discount for the standard pedal bikes, because the way the UNC current system currently operates, there's no user fee. So if there's an option to provide a discount that helps everyone access the system, we want to ask them if, you know, if they have a system in place to do that and to describe it.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sammy, I see, yeah.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, I was wondering about the EV, whether these were or not. I'm glad to know you're looking into an option, a cheaper option, a non-EV option. In terms of advertisement, I would encourage you to RFP both for and without, because I think we need to see what more we're going to get if we allow for advertisement. I'm not interested in facilitating a higher profit for an entity for nothing in return. And I think that if they lay out, look, this is how much we can provide without advertisement, and this is how much more we can do with advertisement, that could help us decide the value of what that represents. In terms of, I was trying to get a sense of what the value is in terms of all these different ways of sharing mobility, specifically bike assist, bike without assist, scooter, and everything else. And I didn't succeed at that, except for finding a lot of articles that just describe, pros and cons of like scooters versus bikes, but nothing about the sharing and the mobility of the sharing ecosystem of what the different options represent. And we all know, like with scooters, the leaving on the sidewalks, but there are also models of scooters leaving in hubs. And I think that the experience of them like littering sidewalks has put a lot of people off. I'm curious to understand kind of like what the value might be for scooters in hubs. If there are any studies or information about that facilitating more independence from cars, for example. I did come across some that described, compared scooters and the life emissions of them, and showed buses are much better than scooters. It didn't talk about electric assisted bikes. But if we could have some kind of description, because we're kind of embarking on something pretty significant here. And I'm sure there's information about, scooters versus bikes. And if we're going to make that commitment, I'd like to have an understanding of what the difference is. Understanding littering them on sidewalks is definitely not what anyone wants. And there's learned experiences and ways to implement these programs. So one is like, what has the discussion been? Because it seems like it's honed in solely on bikes so far. And two, is there room still for assessing the opportunity of scooters with best practices in place as an option?
So we can certainly look into some background research. I know there has been some research done that broke down scooters versus bikes in terms of their ability to shift trips away from cars. As far as if we're interested in looking into scooters for this RFP, part of the interest is to make sure the system is completely seamless, right? You're not going from one jurisdiction to another and suddenly your device doesn't work, right? I think our conversations with UNC have indicated they had to go through a process to change their ordinance just to allow e-bikes on all of their sidewalks. They have not done that for scooters. So we're sticking to bikes and e-bikes simply because of the requirements of UNC for the time being. In the event that changes, we could certainly look at scooters, but we're focused on bikes for now.
Okay, that helps a lot. I just had no idea what the reason was because it wasn't described. That's very helpful. And New York City has a similar situation in London also, that they just don't have the regulations for scooters, and that's why you don't see them as shared mobility in those places. So UNC is the same thing. So having understood that, I would like for us to still be exploring those pros and cons, so that we can lobby UNC if it is something that is worth it, because it does provide all these extra added benefits. Then we can consider pressing UNC to change their rules. The last thing I want to encourage us to think of is integrating the bike system with the shared bike system with our bus infrastructure, and encouraging it with linking proximity to bus stops. And there's some places that aren't necessarily so close to buses that maybe the last mile could be by these shared devices, and to be really thinking in terms of where the hub locations are in those terms too. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. I love that tie-in with the buses and the bikes. Instead of walking that last mile or whatever, you can maybe bike. So yeah, that's that synergy again. Is there any, I think everybody else, nobody else? Zach, thank you again. This is the last agenda item, I believe, and there is no resolution or anything attached to it. It's an update. So I think that's it.
I thought there was a resolution.
Yeah, there is. I'll move the.
Oh, is there one?
Just attach
Yeah.
it. I'll move that.
And I'll
Oh,
second it.
thank you. Yeah, because I don't see it here. Thank you. So Damon moved it and Randy second.
That's
So
right.
all those in favor, if you could stop sharing, is that? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Randy,
Aye.
Sammy,
All right.
Susan,
Aye.
Damon,
Aye.
and Jack,
Aye.
and Barbara, aye. Thank you, Zach. Again,
Thank you, Zach.
he was the boss tonight. He did double duty. I mean, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Anything else, council members? If not, I will definitely entertain that. one.
Just
Oh, wait.
real quick.
I see
yeah,
Sandy, and I thought I saw Randy was going to say something. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted, I'm sure y'all may have heard Durham's considering a poet laureate inspired by Carrboro first and Chapel Hill. And I just want to plant a seed for us to maybe consider to be inspired by Durham. They're considering a stipend for the poet laureate. And to really recognize and value what it means to be an artist, you know, to spend that much time and you know, be a poet. Like it's infamous for like a profession that is a hard one because it unfortunately isn't valued as much in our society. So to really be thinking about what our poet laureates are providing us in terms of not just every day during our meetings, but in the poetry festival, like being the leader and spearheading that effort. And they're specifically talking about a $5,000 stipend. It wasn't clear to me whether it is over 2 years or annually, but the poet laureate is a 2-year stint. And so if y'all are interested in that, I think it would behoove us to really, you know, put value to that art.
I see you, Jackie. Hold on for a second. Randy, did you have something? Or you
I wanted to respond.
Hold on for 1 second. Randy, you had nothing?
No, I was going to
Oh, she was going to
move to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to respond. We do have a stipend for our poet laureate, and we have for several years.
Oh, good.
And we're also looking to bring on a young poet laureate and the Arts Commission, which is who oversees the poet laureate position. I introduced the position years ago, and on the Arts Commission and on Rec and Parks wanted I don't believe in the arts being given away for free either, which is why we have several programs. So we were ahead of Durham on that one, Sammy. They're probably following
glad to hear
us.
it. Thanks, Jackie. So they are still inspired by us.
There is
Do you know off the top of your head how much we are? What the stipend is?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question.
No, if I told you, I would just be making it up.
Okay,
But I'm sure it's in the budget.
Okay, if Mr. Manager, if you could just share with the council what that is for us to understand. Thank you very much. When you get a chance, obviously. Thanks.
Thanks, Jackie and Sammy. I see Susan's hand.
I have 3 things. Al, thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate that. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you very much for leading us through this meeting tonight. And I move to adjourn.
That's what's up. She just slid that right on in there. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So motion by Susan, second by Sammy. All in favor, say aye. Randy,
Aye.
who initiated it. Sammy.
All right.
Damon.
Aye.
Jackie.
Aye.
And Barbara, aye. And thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.
Take care.